With all the information on the internet, it can be a little bit hard to know what's true and what's false. But a little bit of research can go a really, really long way, particularly when there are resources out there that deal directly with the source of the subject matter. In this case, the Tonnika Sisters. Angela Staines, the one surviving Tonnika sister actress, is my friend. Of course, the Tonnika sisters being those two characters that you see quite prominently in the world-famous Mos Eisley Cantina sequence of the original Star Wars film. I've conducted 2 interviews with Angela regarding her involvement with Star Wars. The first one in 2017, in which she discussed her story on the Cantina Chatter podcast. The second, more recently, on the Vintage Collection podcast, in which she explained why this is time for Tonnika, why it still hasn't happened, and, where things are with Hasbro getting the ball moving on her figure. Between both interviews, Angela explained why the Tonnika sisters have not yet happened in very great detail. She confirmed some rumors, and she debunked other rumors. In this video, I'm going to dispel things that I've been hearing lately surrounding the Tonnika sisters that are just flat out wrong. So if you want the truth, you're always at the right place at VC. No hyperbole, no filling in the blanks with our imaginations, just the facts as presented by the source being Angela Staines, the person that is kind of in the middle of this whole situation. So despite what you may have heard on certain videos, despite what you may have heard in other places, I'm going to give it to you straight in this video here. Number 1, the Tonnika sister actresses did not sign likeness releases. This is flat out false. As Angela explained on Cantina Chatter podcast and the Vintage Collection podcast, she and Christine Hewitt being the late actress who unfortunately passed in 2007 that portrayed the other Tonnika sister, did in fact sign likeness agreements. The 2 of them were not cast as extras just to be in the background. They were cast specifically to fill the roles of Space Girl number 1 and Space Girl number 2, as they were referred to on set.
I wasn't booked as an extra. I was booked as an artiste.
Oh, wow.
But obviously my part ended up being quite small.
If you're just a regular extra, just to be in the background of any movie, you don't interview directly with George Lucas. You don't go to the director and have an interview. Angela says that she interviewed specifically with George Lucas for this role.
And he said, you've got to go to Elstree Studios to meet this director called George Lucas. I remember going into this quite big room, and George Lucas was very quite short and quiet and young. And he sat at a desk and told me all about his dreams about this film. And he interviewed me for about, over half an hour.
These were dedicated roles. They signed releases for them. These releases are intended to give the filmmaker the right to use you in their film. Should they continue with other things, marketing, they can use your image. Marketing, of course, includes merchandising. They sign those releases. Angela says in the Vintage Collection podcast that she remembers with Christine Hewitt signing those releases so that Lucas could create merchandise should he want to do that. Now, one of the most revolutionary things George Lucas did, and every dedicated Star Wars fan knows this, is before Star Wars even went into production, he secured the licensing rights for Star Wars and its sequels. So that is really what enabled him to build this huge empire through merchandising with Star Wars. If you have the foresight to do this for your film, certainly you're going to make sure that you check all the boxes, cross all your T's, dot all your I's, and make sure that anybody participating, anybody that is cast in a role in your film, is going to sign some sort of a release granting you the authorization to use their likeness.
They lost our release forms. Apparently something happened to our release forms and they needed me to sign off.
Mm-hmm.
But I do remember signing it. I definitely signed it. I remember signing it. I remember her signing it. We both signed it together.
Uh-huh.
So definitely it's not that I tried not to sign it, because I definitely signed it. But I
Okay.
don't know where it went.
So they may have just lost it
Yes.
over the course of 30 years at that point.
I suppose
Yeah.
so, yeah.
Additionally, Angela confirmed this rumor that has persisted for years, that Lucasfilm just lost, over the course of decades, the previous releases that they did secure with a lot of these actors and actresses for the original film. I don't know what happened to them. Nobody really knows. That's kind of a mystery. She confirms this happened, and this is why they needed to go back and secure the likeness releases with a lot of these actors who were in the original film. Rumor number 2. The Tonnika Sisters cannot be made because of a letter. This is false. Angela has said that there was in fact a letter sent by her husband and his lawyer to Lucasfilm because they caught wind of the fact that they were merchandising her likeness on some things. She cited a calendar, she cited a collector card, she cited a little Galoob figure that were out like in the 90s some time back. He did send the letter. He did suggest that Lucasfilm should provide royalties to Angela because they were using her likeness. However, after this happened, Lucasfilm still sent her and Christine Hewitt a new contract to sign to secure their likeness releases.
Because I did write a letter to Lucasfilm. My husband, he had a lawyer at the time for his company, and the lawyer wrote a letter, but I don't think it was that threatening or anything. Never got a reply, never heard anything. They never wrote back, never, did anything more. Lucasfilm did send me a contract eventually.
It didn't matter that the husband had sent a letter. That did happen, but they were able to look past that and say, you know what, here's the agreement, sign it, and basically we can market your image. We can, get you on the convention circuit if there's work. So that's kind of where things got stalled. Christine did sign her agreement, but Angela did not. And unfortunately, it just didn't happen. She felt that it wasn't fair. They couldn't guarantee her work on the convention circuit, and they also she didn't think it was fair that she would have to purchase any merchandise that they might make featuring her likeness. So that's kind of where things left off with that. It wasn't because of the letter. Yeah, that could have been a factor earlier on, but they did send her a contract in 2005 or 2006, and that's when she didn't sign. So it had nothing to do with the card, had nothing to do with the letter. It's just because the new contract that was sent just wasn't signed. Number 3, the Tonnika Sisters won't be made because they are obscure. False. Again, flat out wrong. Over the decades, Hasbro has made many characters that your average non-collecting Star Wars fan would not know. I mean, they just have. Your average Star Wars fan that doesn't collect isn't going to know about things like Kitty Kikak. They're not going to know about things like Dapor. They're not going to know about things like Effant Mon. I mean, that's common sense. I mean, if unless you're a collector, unless you're serious into the EU, into Legends, into the collector cards from the 90s, all that stuff, you're just not going to know about a lot of these things. Especially if you're a younger collector, you're not going to know about a lot of what's come before. Even if you're collecting now and you weren't, 5, 10, 15 years ago, you're just not going to know a lot about the details that came in previous decades. That's just the way that it is. And yes, they're not making these kinds of figures at the output that they were in the past, but they are trying to sprinkle them in where they make sense. In fact, Hasbro's own CEO has conceded that it is adults who are driving sales of the vintage collection in the Black Series. Star Wars is a collector brand, and there's not a lot of kids buying the vintage collection or the Black Series. So there's not really a need to worry about kids not recognizing a Tonnika sister or recognizing Snaggle Zutton or, any of these figures that are still coming out here and there in the line. And sure, compared to Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker, of course the Tonnikas are less known. I mean, that's just obvious. But collectors aren't asking for the Tonnika Sisters because Hasbro continually refuses to comment on them. They're not asking for them because of this mythology that has grown around them. They're asking for them, and they have been asking for them for years. In fact, they placed fourth in the last Star Wars The Vintage Collection fan choice poll that Hasbro did for a brand new told figure in 2017. They've been asking for them because as Hasbro continued to make Cantina aliens and Jabba's Palace aliens over the decades, it became clear that the Tonnika Sisters were some of the last more visible Cantina characters that hadn't yet been made. In fact, so many Cantina aliens that we have gotten receive their own dedicated shot throughout the Cantina scene. Of the Cantina characters that did get their own dedicated shot that have not yet been made, there's only a few. Arleel Shus, the Wolfman character that you see in the Cantina. The Tonnika Sisters, and Renat, the little rat dude. And if you talk the special edition, then Melis as well, who's basically the Ketwall head flipped over and basically looks like a lizard. So, I mean, that's just a few characters that we haven't gotten. Banis Keeg as well, who, is the one that Alora's Matic is talking to. So, I mean, when you narrow it down this much, we've gotten tons of Cantina alien figures. And you only have these last more prominent ones to focus on, then, of course, those are the ones fans are going to ask for. Those are the ones that you're going to see demand for. And as of yet, we just haven't gotten them. Arguably, if Hasbro managed to, at the very least, get these last characters made into the Vintage Collection in the coming years, I think most collectors would be pretty happy. If these were the last Cantina aliens we got, not just the Tonikas, but the ones that you see in these shots, I think most people would be pretty content. Number 4, the Tonnika Sisters are too expensive to make. This is just false. My friend John Miko, the Vintage Collection Facebook group, actually created this graphic showing how Hasbro could create the Tonnika Sisters using the previously released Zori Bliss figure from the Vintage Collection. If they utilized his ideas and basically kit bashed the figure, tooling some new parts and using Zori Bliss's parts, that would save half the budget right there. And even if Hasbro opted to make brand new sculpts for these figures, you could still do a lot of sharing between the two. You could still share common parts and then tool, different heads and different torsos or whatever to get the difference in size between the two sisters. And it's like if they're making Ahsoka Tano from scratch, she's going to cost the same as a Tonnika sister is going to cost to tool up. They would just need to find out where they can slot it into the line in the Vintage Collection. Just find that right opportunity to do it. And it's totally doable. If you can't get into the main line, then certainly you can get it into a special action figure set, or you can even have it as part of a HasLab opportunity. Number 5, a petition won't do any good. This is false. During Hasbro FanFest, Hasbro acknowledged that a petition to see General Merrick and his X-Wing actually did have some influence on getting that product made. And that petition has received less than the Tonnika Sister petition that I just started this week. Within a matter of days, we passed 1,000 signatures. Demand is demand. Grassroots campaigns have effects. It's one thing to say that a lot of people want the Tonnika Sisters. It's a completely different thing to have hard data that Hasbro can rely on to see that demand is actually there. And again, over 1,000 signatures, more successful than other similar petitions that have had some influence. So petitions work, guys. It's time for Tonnika. It is absolutely time, guys. And the truth is, Disney and Lucasfilm, gigantic companies, have the capacity and resources to make it happen at last. Angela Staines is completely on board to sign that contract she was presented with over 15 years ago. The ball's in Lucasfilm's court. It can happen. There's no rule. There's no precedent in place that cannot be changed. Surely the people that are at Lucasfilm now may differ from the team 15 years ago, and there may be somebody there that has a different level of influence that can look at the petition, look at the hashtag that we've gotten on social media, Time for Tonnika, that can look at all these articles being published online and these videos that have been cropping up, to say, hey, you know what, maybe there's something there. It's completely doable. And, you know, it won't hurt for us to be vocal about it. It really will not. If you're not a fan of the Tonnika Sisters, you don't care about them as figures, that's fine. I don't see the harm in supporting your fellow collector in the things that they are interested in, especially when it involves something like the vintage collection, where we just want to see more figures. We want to see the line expand and continue to grow and continue to do well. It doesn't cost you anything to support something that other fans are passionate about, especially when it has the support of pretty much the entire Star Wars collecting community. And they truly have rallied around this whole Tonnika Sisters campaign. I may have started this campaign, but there is no way it would have been possible without the coordination and support of my friends at Bantha Skull, from Poor Lambda Zuckus, Yakface, Chuck at Jedi Temple Archives, SWTVC, the Vintage Collection Facebook group, Bosk's Bounty, Yoda's News, Jedi Business. Gosh, the list goes on and on and on, and I'm just overwhelmed at the level of support and outpouring of support for this petition. And a lot of notable folks have signed this petition too, which is super awesome. This is truly a community effort, my friends. This is truly something that is showing that when there is a common goal within this collecting community, that you can in fact unite everybody in fighting for something that everybody believes in and that everybody wants. If you haven't already, the simplest thing you could do to help us out is to sign our petition at change.org. I will include a link down here in the description. Please sign it. Please share it. The petition calls for Lucasfilm and Hasbro to produce action figures of the Tonnika Sisters. Check out the latest episode of the Vintage Collection podcast, in which Angela has come back and had a second interview with me and explained, you know, where the situation is, why, from her perspective, it's time for Tonnika, and why time is of the essence in making this a reality. Check out banthaskull.com. There's a series of articles being done surrounding the Tonnika Sisters. I penned one that was published last Monday, May 3rd. Lots of stuff coming that I'm really excited about within the community. Lots of stuff that I'm seeing on social media. And of course, at the Vintage Concepts on Instagram, who did gorgeous concept card art for both of the Tonnika Sisters. It's absolutely beautiful, and what we used as part of our artwork for the campaign. And don't forget the hashtag Time for Tonnika. This is the hashtag we're using on social media, where we absolutely are trying to rally more attention to our cause. Time for Tonnika. I'm Victoria, and this is Victoria's Cantina, and it is absolutely, without a doubt, unequivocally, time for Tonnika.